So, Game of Thrones is finished now. And if you've clicked on this expecting Mad Max, then I'm sure you might be wondering why that's relevant, but it's just a bit of context. Because while I was sitting for the first time anyway watching Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night, the one that got everyone up in arms about darkness and such, I found myself almost completely disengaged and daydreaming about Mad Max. About how all the action is clear and clean, yet fast and exhilarating. And Thrones just wasn't. But let's not mention Game of Thrones again in this video, instead go into how Mad Max Fury Road has such effective action. Fury Road may just be writer and director George Miller's magnum opus. You can admire it for an abundance of reasons. It prioritised authentic stunt work and practical effects, with a reluctance to use computer-generated graphics unless necessary. The production had to handle the difficulties of filming on set in a desert. Near every frame had been planned out in the most detailed storyboard I've ever seen. It successfully entwines exposition and story progression within the action. There's a gorgeous use of colour, the soundtrack is thrilling, there's a fantastic design, vehicles and costume work. But the thing I was daydreaming of and would like to talk to you about now is the film's use of central framing and the use of altered frame rates. Central framing is when the primary subject or information within a shot is situated in the middle of the frame. On its own, central framing is nothing special, but combined with quick cuts, it is a fantastic technique for a thrilling scene. There's also the consideration of how large the subject is within the shot, how clear the subject is within the shot, how long the shot should last, and if the shot is relevant in the first place. It is this series of considerations that separates Mad Max Fury Road from other films, because I can tell you that plenty try and use this technique. It's a very simple thing to do, to put the primary focus in the centre of the screen. To demonstrate this, I have for this section, and will continue to have, the fight scene between Furiosa and Max, with the addition of a box crosshair. In that fight there were 98 individual shots, and the average length of a shot was only 28 frames. Yet it was coherent and easy to follow, establishing the important elements in the fight, the chain, the door, the guns, Nux, the girls, Max, Furiosa. It was all made clear where they were, and thus easy to follow how they interacted, and the fast cuts that stitch it all together keep an accelerated and thrilling pace. But it's the framing that makes it work. There's no unnecessary information with shots that shouldn't be there, and all the information that's required for us to understand is very clearly displayed. Much of Mad Max was filmed in a variety of frame rates, from 12, 24, 60 up to 300, all of which will be played back at the film standard 24 frames per second. A higher recorded frame rate played back at 24 frames will create a slow motion effect that I'm sure you're all accustomed to seeing here and there in both movies and TV. The fast motion effect, however, dotted throughout Mad Max, but most obvious in the escape scene in the opening, uses this technique for a more prolonged period. The resulting effect within the audience is exhilaration, is fear, and an understanding of the character's desperation. Bonuses for this particular scene is its ability to maintain coherence with such fast cuts and short shots. Not only establish the character's current emotional state, but their past, though true with some painful vagary, as well as establishing an environment, and such portrays a clearer image of the overall world in which this film is set. This video has only highlighted 2 of the many reasons to appreciate Mad Max Fury Road and its production, but it's for these reasons I found myself recalling the film and seeking at least a similar level of engagement from other media I promise not to mention again. And for me, that has to cement Mad Max Fury Road as a movie that I love. Now, before I finish off, I wanted to say a little thing on the fact that when I thought of Mad Max watching the show, and I went and I actually rewatched it somewhat recently, and I thought of doing this video about firstly altered frame rates and then central framing. I looked up to see if anyone's talked about it before, and yes, many people have. So if you want to have a more in-depth look at central framing, and at least specifically in the context of Mad Max, there's plenty out there. One of a very short, very brief but effective little article I read was from Vashi Visuals, and there's a little Vimeo video displaying central framing, the same way with the crosshair. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not the most original person in covering this, but it was something I was thinking about, and this is a movie I love. So if you want to go read that little thing from Vashi Visuals, or just Google central framing and Mad Max yourself, have a go at that, you'll find a lot more stuff. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully do some more of these. Bye bye.